If I can see it, I can be it. If I can hear it, I can speak it. If I can listen, I can learn it. There's a 50-50 chance if you try that you succeed. And if you don't try, there's a 100% chance that you'll stay where you are. I was born in Los Angeles, California in June of 1947 to Janet and Oliver Howard, who came from Louisville, Kentucky. They came to California to start anew and get away from Southern life. They had ideas of how life was to be lived, and Southern life didn't allow them to live that kind of life. And right behind them came my grandparents, Alfred and Catherine Williams, and we all lived together in a house on 120th and Wilmington Avenue. My father was a maitre d' extraordinaire. He was a maitre d' at the captain's table, and then when the Marineland opened up in San Diego, he would be at Marineland. He was the maitre d' there. My mother, early on, decided that a 9-to-5 job was not what she wanted to do. So she was a homemaker. Then she decided to be a beautician, but she didn't want to be in a shop. She did women's hair at home. And then she decided that that wasn't good enough, so she got into real estate. And then she decided that that wasn't good enough, and so she just left. She just picked up and left. So the marriage between my mother and father, at least the gentleman on my birth certificate, was short-lived. My brother and I had an older brother, he and I ended up living primarily with my grandparents. Prior to moving in permanently with our grandparents, I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like not to have a cabinet with food in it. I know what it's like to wonder if when you go home, whether or not you're going to have a home. So in the early 50s, my grandmother moved, my grandparents moved, and we moved with them, and it broke a covenant. We were the first Black family north of Washington Boulevard. We were relegated, my brother and I, to the rear of the property. The neighbors would throw garbage and call us names and do all sorts of things. And we had to be driven to school. We had to be driven out of the neighborhood because our neighbors did not like the fact that we integrated the block we lived in. So we ended up in a multi-race, multi-socioeconomic elementary school, 24th Street School, where all the children played nicely together. We had the first Black principal of an elementary school in that area of Los Angeles. Her name was Alma Covington. And Mrs. Covington made sure that the education we had was superior. I was studious. I loved to read. My granddaddy taught me to read. And so I began with getting the newspaper in the mornings. I liked reading. I liked news. I liked interaction with older people. Because we couldn't play with the kids on the block, most of my time was spent with older people. So my entire life has been looking to, enjoying the wisdom of the mature. My grandmother would cook in white folks' houses, well-to-do white folks. So the food we ate and the presentation of that food was not only tasty, but it was beautifully prepared. And we learned how to eat in elegant places at the dining room table. And sometimes I even had a book on my head because that's what she saw others doing. So she wanted me to be prepared. She went to school after Brown versus Board of Education and Affirmative Action. She ended up going to LACC, LA City College. She earned an Associate of Arts degree in child development then. It would have been an early childhood education now. And at the graduation, she handed me that diploma. And she said, "This is the first diploma, degree of many, This is mine, but you shall get many. And she pointed at me, and you're getting a terminal degree. I didn't know what that was. So I'd say, okay. My grandfather, on the other hand, was a retired U.S. Army. He was 31 years in service after World War II, a World War II vet. He was a sergeant of the U.S. Army, Colored Army. He was in the Colored Army. He also played instruments. He was in the Colored Concert Band. So in the military, he played his tuba. He was a master sousaphone player, which is a tuba, and he played all brass instruments. So our home was filled with music. So I played the piano, the violin, the viola, the string bass, and then finally he allowed me to play the cello. And so I played cello from the 3rd grade all the way until I graduated from high school. During my childhood, my older brother, when my mother would leave, became like a father. So my brother and I are extremely close, my older brother. We're 19 months apart, and he is my best friend, and he always says I'm his best friend in the whole world. We're extremely close. When I was 6 years old, and I suppose my brother was 7 or 8, my mother had found her way to Alaska, where she again married, and she had another child, another brother. My grandmother sent my older brother and I to Alaska to be with my mother. My younger brother, his name was McClellan, we called him Mac initially, was born while we were in Alaska. It was in 1953. My younger brother, during about age 40-something, 45, decided that he was not a male. And this was well before transgender and all the other things would come out. My younger brother went through the whole process so he could have the sex change operation. And during the course of preparing for that and all the testing they do, they found out he had Lou Gehrig's disease. So they wouldn't do the operation. I accelerated out of high school. I was supposed to graduate summer 65. I graduated in the winter class, January 65. Come February 2nd, that next Monday, I was working for the telephone company. I had been dating a guy, Michael Clark, but we had been friends, a bunch of us from elementary school, middle school, and the like. That June, we decided to get married. Michael was the grandson of the owner of the Clark Hotel. So he had his own little car. He had a Corvair that had moon rims and the CD player and the like. So I married him. We got married on his 19th birthday, June 5th, 1965. And my 18th birthday, we got the marriage license, which was June 1st, 1965. So nobody could tell us. Not too far from that, I ended up with my son, Michael Jr. The marriage was tumultuous. We stayed together. We tried to make it work. Had another child 3 years later. Shortly thereafter, we divorced. I decided to go back to school. In a year and a half, I got my baccalaureate degree from Cal State LA. February 74, I was going to USC in their Masters in Public Administration program in Health Services Administration and Gerontology, full scholarship, and they paid me $380 in addition to the tuition and the books to go so I could pay for babysitter and go to school. Went to work for Golden State Mutual. It was a really unique experience, but a wonderful experience. because Golden State Mutual was the second largest Black insurance company in the United States of America. I left there. I then went to Sons of Watts. I was comptroller and director of program operations. Sons of Watts was ex-offenders and substance abusers and marginalized population, unemployed, underemployed. And that's where I found a passion. I found a passion that I wanted to help other people be the best they could be. I left the Sons. I started a medical billing company, made lots of money, traveled with my kids, did lots of fun things, but I wasn't happy doing that. I ended up going into education. I ended up teaching parenting classes. Then I went and taught academic subjects in a substance abuse, Bricks Kicks. I ended up from there with a 90-day assignment at the Old Watts Skills Center to be the coordinator of the GAIN program, a welfare reform program. That 90-day consulting job turned into 26 years, focused on improving the quality of life of my people. Watts Skills Center and Maxine Waters Employment Prep Center came out of the rebellion of '65. All of these community stalwarts, all of these women who were advocates for our people were on the community advisory board at the Maxine Waters Employment Prep Center. I started there in 1989. I left in '95 when I went to earn my doctoral degree. I ended up coming back in 2004 when working for Santiago Jackson, who was the assistant superintendent, who assigned me there, gave me a $5 million signatory authority to expand that campus and bring over everything that had been at the Watts Skills Center to that campus, the welding shops, the construction and trades, the automotive shop, all of the vocational career tech educational programs, to take them there so that it would meet the 40-year promise after the rebellion of '65. And his only directive to me was make it proud, make us proud, make the community's commitment worthy of your effort. So my last assignment before I retired was bringing up that structure. There are 5 additional buildings on that campus. In addition to that, in working with Maxine and Black Women's Forum, I was given the opportunity to place child care programs in Watts. I placed them at 93rd Street Elementary, Ritter Elementary, on the campus of the Maxine Waters site on Central Avenue. We built the Ethel Bradley Early Education and Health Career Center, where we had the largest licensed vocational nursing program in the district. So we uplifted all sorts of people, not just in Watts. I have 3 children. My son was once editor and publisher of a rap review magazine. It was the very first rap review magazine. It was before Vibe and Source. Quincy Jones tried to buy it, and my son would not sell it. My son had a son, my only grandson. And in January 2021, my grandson didn't wake up, and it devastated my son. My next child is a daughter. She is the chief examiner for the high school equivalency and now soon to be again GED office for LA Unified School District. My youngest daughter is a daughter from another relationship. She is director of training and learning technology for an international company, and she lives in North Carolina. My grandmother would say to me, "Why did you go back to Watts? We moved away from Watts." And I said to her, "What good is all of the information and the exposure you've given me if I can't share it?" I wanted to be that person that people could look to and decide that I could be what she is, and I would help them. And that's pretty much what I've done in my life.